Well, good evening, and welcome to the 476th meeting of the Historic Preservation Board for Thursday, January 6th, 2022. This is Tom Combs. I'm the new chairman of the Preservation Board. We'll call the meeting to order. First item is the approval of minutes from the December 2nd, 2021 meeting. If everyone had a chance to read it, any comments, questions, corrections? Could I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda was introductions and communications, and it said that we have none, but we have a late addition. I'd like to welcome back Linda Kohl as the liaison to the town board. Linda had many years of doing this before, and we thank Debbie Dror for her contributions, but we welcome Linda back.
Thank you.
We have nothing under public participation. In the certificates of appropriateness, we have an application from Bill Blake for alterations to the Daisy Flour Mill. Bill, we'll turn the floor over to you.
Ready to turn this on, or?
Nope, ready to go.
We're good? All right. Appreciate your time today. So yes, I am here seeking some approval for a building that we're in process of purchasing, which is the Daisy Flour Mill, 1880 Blossom Road. Our goal is keep any changes to the building pretty minimal. We want to make sure we maintain its historic presence in the community while really turning it into a functioning business for us. So I represent Rising Storm Brewing Company. We are a 3.5-year-old business, originally started in Livingston County. We are based in Livonia, the town of Livonia. Looking for a second location. We've been looking in Penfield and Webster area for about 6 months now, and came across this location, which we found to be a pretty good fit for what we were looking to accomplish for a brewery. So in terms of the scope of what we're looking to do, the building itself has really, from my perspective, two key sections to it. There's the main seating, dining area, and then there's the ballroom. Our goal will be to make the ballroom, which has taller ceilings, wide open space, where we would actually make beer. So we will brew on premise there. The dining room itself would be maintained as a tap room for us. So from an overall project scope standpoint, like I said, we're looking to make very minor changes for the most part. From the inside perspective on the dining room area, nothing major happening on there other than some new flooring, new paint, new tables and chairs, some new lighting, basically freshen up the space that's in there. That's probably the biggest piece of that. There's a few pieces of machinery, and I think you guys have probably been through this before, but in the rafters of that building, there's some pieces of machinery that are up there really as like decorative display purposes. And they weigh a few tons a piece, and they're literally like pulling the building down. Joints are separating because it's so much weight in the rafters that the only other major change to that space would be taking those out. They were not necessarily part of the original mill to begin with. They really are more decorative type pieces. And really to maintain the structural integrity of it, we feel those have to come down. So that's really it from that side. Minor changes within the space there. The ballroom itself will require some alterations for us to make it functional for what we want to do. Really the two biggest changes, and one of which there's a rendering of, is there's a man door on the back of the building, which we would convert into an overhead door so we could get shipments and deliveries in there. You can see this is the very south side of the building. You can't see it from the road. It backs up to the state land behind it. So we would put an overhead door where there's an existing man door today. So as you face the back, which is the top picture, That's what's on the right side. The left side, we are looking to add a small 20 by 25 structure that would essentially act as a cooler for us because our production space will be right on the other side of that wall. There's not quite enough room for us to create that storage and that amount of storage in the building, so we would attach it onto the back. The goal would be to make the facade look identical to what exists today, more or less where once you look at it, you wouldn't realize it was even a new addition, that it just blends right with the rest of the building. Those two are probably by far the biggest pieces of I guess, alteration that we're looking to make it functional. The only other major thing I wanted to note, and I don't necessarily know that it's major, from an outside perspective, the property's really overgrown. There's like 5 trees that sit in the very front of the building that you can see from the picture are like 2 or 3 feet off the building. They are higher than the building, so they hang over the roof. It is deteriorating the roof. There's definitely risk to the building should something happen with one of those trees. So we want to take those trees out. It'll allow from the road you'll be able to see the building a little bit more completely. Other than that, from a landscape perspective, we plan to clean it up and freshen it up. No major changes to that, but those trees are definitely a problem for it and not helping the long-term structure and stability of the building, so we think that those need to go. Other than that, the ballroom where we plan to put the brewing space and system, not a lot of major changes there other than cleaning up the space, emptying it out, and making it function for what we need. So like I said, our goal is as minimal as possible from a change standpoint, but also make sure whatever we do kind of maintains the historic nature of the building, but keeps it functional and keeps the building alive, because it's definitely sat vacant, and you walk in there, you can tell it's been vacant for a while. It needs some life.
I had a couple of questions. Shannon, can you go back to the picture,
Sure, the rendering.
the rendering? The addition that you want to do is not in that picture?
It is. If you look at the top one, it's where those 2 windows are. It's just a little bump out. If you look at the bottom picture, it's the one behind the car. The car is really just there to show you the size of it.
Okay, so the overhead door, it looks like it's flat on the back, but it's not really.
Yes,
The-
you're right.
okay.
It's hard to see the depth in that rendering, yeah.
All right.
And today, there's a hole right where that structure we're looking to add is, that 20 by 25 space. There's a heating unit that's out there. It's fenced in, so it's already kind of boxed off in that space. We're actually going to remove that heating unit as we won't need it based on what we're trying to do in there. So it already has that footprint kind of carved out that's fenced in and actually looks pretty ugly at the moment. So it would actually probably improve the overall view of it.
Mm-hmm. And in your application, you also mentioned that there's a leaking roof and window repairs. Are those major items?
Well, I hope not. My contractor does not believe that they're major. Most of the roofing is like flashing that needs to be replaced around where the hoods are in the kitchen and that sort of thing. But there are several spots that it's leaking. I am not anticipating any major roof renovation, really just basic maintenance for that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the windows.
Other comments? And
I've got 3 questions, but not really for the applicant. I guess they're for Kathy, Jim, and Shannon. The equipment that's in the building, if I remember from the last time we saw this, we don't have any interest in the inside of the building, correct? It's the outside that's the landmark? Or is that incorrect? Anybody?
In the last application that you heard regarding this property, the applicants, I'm sorry, 2 applications ago, the applicants were proposing to take out the lift system that took the flower up to the top and then transferred it over to whatever process had to occur at that point in time. I called Erin Zernicki at the state SHPO office. Her comment was, it is a national landmark. It's not a local landmark. And her comment is one of the criterion for keeping that a national landmark is to keep that mechanism in place. They understood the situation regarding the heavy equipment that's up in the rafters, and they're supportive of getting rid of that.
Okay.
But the one component was that one lift system has to stay in place.
Okay. But so the heavy equipment can we can
Absolutely,
decide that.
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, in the last resolution, that was a big concern. I know Tom was there, and I think Joan Belgiorno was with me the day that we went and looked at the site with the applicants and their contractors. I think there's some wording in the resolution of approval that you granted for them for their certificate that identified the fact that although you had no control over the interior, you were supportive of them removing that if
Okay.
time came for
That's
them
what I
to do it.
thought I remembered, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to be sure.
And maybe Shannon can get you a copy of that resolution if you don't have it.
Yeah, I can find that.
It'll show that you were supportive of that.
My second question is the trees out front. I kind of remember, I don't remember if it was 5, but I kind of remember that we already looked at the trees and thought they didn't have historic value.
You're right.
That was true, wasn't it?
You're right, and what he's saying is absolutely true. When we looked at the site, those trees are now becoming a problem to the
Okay.
safety of the building, and you did suggest that those trees be taken down as well and approve that, actually.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought I remember, but I couldn't find any notes on it.
Yep.
The third thing is a little harder. Is the ballroom actually part of the historic designation, or is it just the front part of the building?
It was built in the 80s after the property was designated, which I believe was in 1974. But that was built on later. So technically, it's really not historic.
So all we care, not to minimize it, but all we care is that whatever's being built complements the building. We don't care about the historic piece of the ballroom.
Right, and I think the ballroom they tried to build that to be consistent with the building as he's trying to do with his addition.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Back to the equipment that's up there on the upper floor, not to belabor it, but there are people or museums that look at old stuff like that, and there may be value to it. I don't know what it was. I think we thought it was a printing press or something.
Yeah, the plan is get some good pictures of it, see if I can find somebody else that wants it to be able to take it down, so we don't have to do it, for one.
Yeah.
But two, exactly, there may very well be someone that would desire some of that equipment, whether it be, in a museum or something like that. So we'll find the right forum to try to get information about that out there. I would certainly prefer that we do something positive with it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I just have one more question. So, I mean, are you acquiring the property, leasing it? I'm just
So we
curious.
purchase.
Okay, purchase. And what's your timeline for undertaking the renovations and completing the project and the C of O?
Depending on how the purchase, all that goes through and approvals from the town and the historic board, I mean, we're hoping in the next 90 days to start the close on the property and start the renovation. It's probably about a 5-month process to get everything where we need it to be after, all the approvals are complete. So hopefully by end of summer, early fall, we're ready to open, assuming all goes according to plan.
Thank you.
So your closing is contingent on approval from
It
the
is.
town?
Correct.
We'll make an emotion. Anybody has some-
Yeah, if there aren't other questions, then yes, we look for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve what's the matter?
Before you do that, I just want to bring to the board's attention, I'm sure Shannon would do that if I didn't. He has to go to the town board still for a special permit. It's probably a good idea to table the matter, and make a recommendation to the town board that you're supportive of it,
Okay.
through a memo, and then approve it once the town board's approved its special permit, if it's going to be.
Let me amend my motion. I would like to make a recommendation to the town board that removal of the trees is would be okayed by this board if it comes back to us. Number 2, the equipment, we don't deem that as part of our purview, and so its removal is okay with us. And as far as the ballroom and the addition to the ballroom, we're okay with that because it complements the part of the building that has the historic designation. And
The outside.
the outside, we're okay, and we approve of the we would approve of the outside if this comes back to us, because again, we think it complements the historic building. The only other thing that is not part of this, but Shannon is, if you're at all concerned about fixing the roof or anything like that, I think we would agree to empower you to decide if it's in kind or not, so he doesn't have to come back.
Okay.
Because it sounded very much like unless something horrible happened.
Yeah, that will be, I'm sure that
It would
once
be
you
all-
get in there and start fixing stuff up, you'll know for sure. But yeah, we'll have to
Yeah, I don't mean
kind
to
of
jinx you.
play that one
But
by
if he-
ear a
But
little
if he
bit.
doesn't have to come back,
Yes.
I would hate
Yes,
to see him
please.
waste the time.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So are we all in favor of that? We'll call it a recommendation. I think that's a good way to determine it. Is everyone in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone not in favor? Okay, it's unanimous.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Blake, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me. Thanks, Jim.
Before we
Okay.
go on, when is the next town board meeting? When would his next visit to the town?
I'm not sure. Bill, do you know when you're going to the town board?
I don't know the date.
Okay,
I believe it's the first week of February, somewhere close to that. I'm not.
okay, but you're scheduled to be on the agenda.
Today about getting in there.
Perfect, okay.
Does that meeting come before ours or after?
That would be, it depends on where it lands.
It comes after?
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we'll sort that out.
Yeah, because I would hate to have him wait till March.
Right, yeah, we don't want to put another month on it. so.
Right, okay. Yeah, we'll check on that, see the timeline on everything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving down our agenda, informational items. The first item is the designation of 86 Mountain Road. That's the James Johnson house that the New York State gave approval to go on the historic register, and also to forward that to the National Register. With any comments about that? I did have a couple of things just to mention. One was that this board didn't hear about that until it was pretty far along in the process, and I thought it might make sense to suggest, if that's the right word, to the state, that if they're going to do something with respect to a property in the town, that we be involved. We might support it entirely as we do this one, or we may have had some other comments that we wanted to make about it. But I think it makes sense that they sort of follow a protocol, that they at least let the people who live in the town know what's going on. That was the first comment. And then I guess secondly, should we, even though it would be retroactive, should we make it a local landmark? Or is that just redundant at this point? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
So-
I think we could approach the owners and ask them if they have any interest. It has been, right, like you said, it's been listed on the state register, and they're moving forward with the National Register nomination now. But we can approach, or I can approach the owners and ask if they'd like to be locally designated
Yeah,
as
and
well.
does it make sense to the rest of the board that we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, then Shannon will ask you to do that. Next thing on the agenda was an update on the Clark House. Is there any news there?
So I reached out to Eric Tate of the Public Works Department. So he said that we don't have too much of an update, but the engineer's report is finished and has been given to the town board to review. Nothing is going to really happen with that over the next month or so. Basically, the overall report says that there are parts of the building that are in decent shape for the age of it, but would require quite a significant amount of work and money to repair or replace. So at some point, all that information of the report will be uploaded to the website, but the timeline for that currently unknown. So a little bit of an update that it's been reviewed and we have a report for it, but we don't know exactly the next steps yet.
So we don't know the dollar amount.
Correct.
There are dollar amounts listed,
Okay.
but, we reviewed it at the end of the year, but now we have a new board, we have 2 new people and everything, so it's kind of, it's not in limbo, but, we got to take another look and just see how much commitment, and there's different varieties of things you could do. You could save part of the building, all the building, tear the building down. There's so many different things you can do. So it's It's not an easy
Yeah.
project to come to a
But
consensus.
at some point, that would come back to this board for.
It will.
The third item under informational items is 1129 Empire Boulevard, which is the now closed MacGregor's restaurant. And we had heard that someone was interested in buying it, and Kathy, you might want to pipe in here, because it is very old. You know a bit of the history of that building.
It was a stopover for people who crossed over across the float bridge very early on. I think the first map that we have that shows a hotel or an inn at that location is on the 1858 map. I don't know if that was the same building, but we do know that the later ones were. Back until at least 1902, it was the very same building. So it's got some history.
Well, I guess my first thought was that it would be something that if someone is buying it and they have an interest in having the building designated, that we could take that on as a suggestion. Perhaps if the town is in contact with the buyer, they could just share that with him if he or she is interested in having a designation when they take it over. That we take it from there.
Yeah, Jim did give me the contact information for them. I think that they are hoping to close pretty soon. So I will be in contact with them now and see what they're open for. But I think that they were open to the possibility of being locally designated. So we'll follow up with them and try to get that process moving.
Great. That'd be good. Okay, thank you. Held items, we had none. Other business, none. Old business, none. New business, we had a couple of things that came up. The first being the plan by Verizon Telecommunications to put in a tower in the village. And I couldn't tell from the map exactly where that was, but is it back in the fire department property?
That's what I heard.
And
And I thought it was the church parking lot, no? No? Oh, okay.
Where I came to. Back in late October, early November, we met with the attorneys and Verizon. They are proposing to place a cell tower, I think it's 128 feet in height. Actually, Mike, it's just south of your property, well, south of the property where the hair salon is now, the Haven Hair Salon. You may or may not know, but when we created the zoning ordinance for cell towers, we excluded cell towers out of the four corners. We just didn't want to see these towers, massive towers, overtaking the four corners. There are some federal regulations that countermand that, and they have to come into the Zoning Board of Appeals for a use variance because it's not allowed in the district. But the criterion for a use variance is much different for cell towers at a federal level than it is for just obtaining a use variance to allow commercial uses within a residential district, for instance. You basically have to demonstrate that there's no other alternative as to where it could go and still be able to serve the area that you're trying to serve. So they'll be attending a zoning board meeting before too much longer. They also have to go in for site plan approval. The planning board is going to be overseeing that application. And they'll have to, I believe they have to come to you, although I'm not sure you're going to be giving them any approvals because the church at 1862 Penfield Road, the Baptist church, was designated as a historic site. And that falls into the seeker category of a type 1 action. So they have to do some findings as to why they're not going to impact the historic site. I'm not sure you have to issue any type of permit for them to do this because it's not actually in the district. It's about 333 feet. East of 5 Mile Line Road, which is about 130 feet beyond the district boundary, which is 200 feet from either side of 5 Mile Line Road. So you're probably not going to be doing anything in terms of issuing permits, but you still want to see what's going on there. And I'm sure Shannon will be getting that information to you as they start making their applications to the planning board and zoning board.
So they're doing a seeker to
They have to.
determine that they aren't negatively affecting the property,
Correct,
the historic property.
correct. They're basically abutting the property.
I don't think I'm really comfortable with that, to be honest with you. Who's going to approve the seeker?
I would expect that the lead agency in this whole operation would probably be the planning board.
I think the planning board should be made, well, if everybody agrees, I think the planning board should be very aware of the fact that we're concerned about this.
Oh, I think
And-
everybody's concerned about it.
Well, sometimes that doesn't come all the way through on town business.
The big
but-
question is why do they have to put it where they're putting it? Because it's right almost on the property line.
And I'm going
versus-
to ask the same questions that I asked when they were going to put up by the church on, what was that, 5 Mile and Whalen, when they insisted they had to have a phone station there, and they couldn't bury it underground. I would ask that somebody ask the planning board to show us where there is a tower in any other historic district in the county. So Spencerport, Pittsford, the village of Fairport. For some reason, these companies all seem to treat Penfield as if we're not the same as these other towns. And I don't think that's acceptable to put a cell tower in the middle of the Four Corners. 120 feet, okay, it's outside the district, but it's affecting a property that is a historic property.
So I would suggest the board prepare some kind of documentation, a memo to the planning board and zoning board expressing your concerns.
Okay?
They have not made the applications to my knowledge at this
Could
point.
you repeat where it's going to be again?
It's just south of the Haven Hair Salon property.
Where the park is?
No, it's just adjacent to the parking lot for the fire district, or fire hall there.
I sort of feel the same way. I disagree with it.
It might be outside the district, but it's definitely in the view shed.
Yeah, it's
It
definitely.
is. Definitely a-
There's enough reason where I think the planning commission needs to know that we don't approve this. And again, I mean, we've made so much progress in the Four Corners in the last few years. Just that barber shop, I dwell on that, but that looks so good. So many other things have really come along there. It's been more than a few years, but the Daniel Penfield statue, all this stuff looks great and makes the Four Corners look so much better. The Good Doctor's properties look really nice. To put a cell tower there, and again, I could be wrong, but I don't think you'll see one in Pittsford, in the village of Pittsford. I don't think you'll see one in Spencerport. I know you won't see one in Fairport. So I don't know why it's
And I think
acceptable.
that has to be conveyed to the boards having review processes involved in this application.
I agree. We spent a lot of time to clean those properties up, and I don't think we should put a tower back in there.
So I think Shannon will probably be able to get you access to the applications when they come in. As I say, they haven't yet, to my knowledge. Maybe they have since I've been gone, but I don't believe so.
I asked Andy yesterday, and he said that it hasn't come in yet.
Yeah, and Andy will be the clerk to the zoning board, so you sit right next to him, so that there's communication
got
between
direct
both of them
access.
every day. So you should get the applications and review those, and then make comment to the
Yeah,
board.
let's not get ahead of it, but I think you voiced well some concerns. So Shannon, you'll keep us posted on that?
Yes, I will, and when they submit the application, I can forward that on to you guys, so you have a better idea of what they're proposing. I mean, we have a pretty good idea about what the actual application says. I can pass that along.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item under new business, the Penfield Historic Preservation Appreciation Day. Last fall, we talked a couple of times about things that the board might want to undertake for 22. And this came up as a suggestion that we do something similar to what was done back in I think it was 2016. And Kathy was nice enough to find some of the documentation from that, which we sent to you, and I hope you had a chance to take a look at it to see if it's something. Yes, it's on the screen there. if it's something we would want to undertake this year. Because if we do, I would suggest that there's a lot of planning and communication that would have to go into this soon in order to pull it off. Any comments from anyone on trying to undertake this year?
I think it's a really good way to recognize and appreciate the people who are willing to put their time, energy, and money into the historic buildings in town. Just let them know that it's appreciated.
I mean, as I thought about it, a lot of the work, if we just reproduce what was done a few years back, it would take, we just say, well, talk to the same people and ask them to do the same thing they did before, and it might not be as much of an effort as it was the first time. But I wouldn't want to undertake this if we didn't have agreement from the board that it was not just worthwhile. I think it's probably worthwhile, but that we can make it happen.
I'm in agreement.
I'm sorry, Mike, what was?
I think it's a good idea. Just copy what we did a few years ago. Here.
Shannon, we'd be looking for some help, so.
Yes. Yeah, I think using this as a basis gives us a really good outline, and definitely, like you said, kind of cuts down on the amount of work because most of it's already done. So yeah, maybe asking back some of these same people or getting interest from new people, if anyone else has anything else to offer. Just in case we get like the same people back, you know, we wouldn't want them to hear the exact same presentation, but maybe there's things that have changed in the past 5 years since this first event happened. There might be more information, new information. So I can definitely reach out to them. Maybe that's even just a question for the speakers and say, you know, has the information changed since you first spoke to us about this?
Yeah, and for sure, the audience might change too. If
Yes.
People, new people in these houses and others that have been designated. Well, if we could ask you then to take that on, just
Okay.
contact them, or if I should do it, to contact those four to see if they'd be interested in helping us out again.
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely reach out to them. Yeah, just do out some feelers to see if they're interested. Do we have maybe a proposed timeline on when we're thinking this would happen?
Well, the first one was in October, if I.
Yeah, it
was
says
in
October, yep.
I think that's probably a good time of the year, you know,
Okay.
when the summer's over and in the early fall.
Perfect. So I'll just reach out, see what the interest is like and see if they have anything else to add.
Okay. And were there any other suggestions that had come up when we talked about this of things that we could do? And I don't recall any.
I think we had a pretty long list of suggestions. But yeah, I think this one is definitely a good basis to at least get us started. And maybe, you know, as we go through the process, we can see where it branches off and see if more things pop up as we're going through it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, then I guess before we adjourn, we would like to have a brief executive session. Our next meeting is going to be February 3rd. Anything else before we?
I think that's it, unless anyone has anything else to add, but I think that covers the agenda.
Okay, thank you, and we'll regroup over in the other meeting room.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.